Hello, everybody. This is Brian Rengert bringing you another edition of Township Talks. We are joined by State Representative Jim Struzzi. Jim is a representative from Indiana County and Republican chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. Jim, you've always been a good friend of local government. Before we jump into some of the questions and some of the topics we want to cover, do you mind giving our members just a little background on yourself?
Well, sure. Yeah, as you said, Brian, I'm Jim Struzzi, state representative from Indiana County, serving in my fourth term now. I am the Republican Appropriations Chairman. I've been on the Appropriations Committee since I took office. Previous to that, I was the president of the Indiana County Chamber of Commerce. Previous to that, I was a press secretary with the Department of Transportation for 14 years, serving in PennDOT District 10 and District 11. So I'm very familiar with a lot of the issues that townships face related to infrastructure, drainage, stormwater management, all those types of things, and certainly the topic of today, energy production and its impact on those types of projects. So happy to be here and the opportunity to speak with you.
Yes, and with your PennDOT background, maybe today we're going to talk about energy production, but maybe another time we can have you back and talk a little bit more about transportation.
Sure.
I think all of our members can agree that Pennsylvania should be an energy leader. However, there's a new piece of legislation out there, House Bill 502. It is part of the governor's lightning plan. And 502 would create a statewide board that would give energy developers for major energy projects the ability to preempt or kind of circumvent local government in the land development and siting and zoning areas. What are your thoughts on that bill, and what are your thoughts kind of on local government's role, in this space?
Well, I mean, just from your basic description there, I think that should be alarming to anyone in local government. I mean, the state should not have the power or the ability to circumvent local ordinances. Township supervisors and borough officials, they all have they're elected to govern their local municipality. So I don't think in any case the government should have the right to come in and tell them how to use their land. This whole lightning plan is just to me it's ridiculous. We know that we have a tremendous amount of energy here in this Commonwealth. We don't need more policy to spur energy production. What we need is less policy.
Yes, I certainly appreciate those comments. And our members have been at the forefront of the energy discussion for really for several decades now, if not longer. And with that, you mentioned at the beginning that you're also the Republican Appropriations Chair in the House. We are in the beginning of June. For those of our members who don't recall, June is budget month typically. So I would be remiss if I did not ask just, is there any update on the budget process or anything you can share as we're kind of winding down this process?
Well,
or ramping up, I guess. We're at the beginning of June.
We're really starting to see things move. Again, the bills we're just talking about, some of the bills that we've pushed through the House on party line votes for the most part, are the governor's spending plan. We pushed recreational marijuana a few weeks ago. We had charter school reform this week. We're looking at probably the minimum wage bill coming through next week that the House Democrats are pushing. These are all pieces of the governor's plan. So they moved the legislation to try and get his initiatives underway. But we're still very far apart. The governor has proposed almost a $52 billion spending plan at a time when we know our revenues aren't going to even come close to meeting that type of spend. We also understand that we are obligated to fund some increases, particularly in the area of Medicaid and other state agencies that because of inflation or obligations, contractual and things like that, we have to find some increases in funding, but not to the point where the governor is spending. His spending is excessive. He has continued to spend us out of our surplus, and he's proposing to completely drain the surplus this year.
I think our members certainly understand the challenges of budgeting. We have to budget every year and have very limited revenue sources to make sure we provide the services that we need. So our members are no stranger to that. And as you were talking about the budget, one additional question popped into mind. And transportation has also been a big topic around Harrisburg recently, particularly mass transit funding. Mass transit funding is, I think, very important for certain parts of the state, and is something that the legislature should be looking at. But one of the things our members have also talked about is we also need, local funding for roads and bridges. I think it's estimated, that collectively local roads and bridges are underfunded by several $billions, and are incredibly important both to, just kind of the Pennsylvania ecosystem. The buses of mass transit also drive on local roads. So just any updates on the transportation front, or is that still kind of a wait and see?
I think that's going to be a major part of these budget discussions. The governor has proposed shifting an additional 1.7% of the sales and use tax to mass transit. The bulk of that going to the Philadelphia's transit system, SEPTA, and the other large chunk going to Pittsburgh's transit authority, with the remainder sprinkled around the state. That's a lot of money. Last year, we funded public transportation, mass transit, to the tune of $1.2 billion in this Commonwealth. And we continue to channel millions and millions of dollars to these agencies without really understanding where those funds are going or what they're being used for, at a time when ridership is down in mass transit across the entire Commonwealth. So we have to really look at how these funds are being used, right sizing transit to fit the needs, not only in our urban areas but in our rural areas. Here in Indiana County, we have a lot of public transportation needs. Trying to get people from outlying areas, you can't send an entire bus out to pick one person up. So we have to find a way to make that work for people.
Oh, wonderful. Jim, thank you very much for joining us. Our members always appreciate hearing from the legislature, and I know it's an especially busy time for you as Appropriations Chair. So again, thank you very much. And anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
Well, I would just say, I work closely with our township supervisors here in Indiana County. I was just at the local conference in Clymer about 2 weeks ago. I appreciate everything that our supervisors do. I know it's difficult work, and at a time when budgets are very much stretched thin, but I want you all to know that we have your backs in Harrisburg.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
All right, you too. Thanks.